Cockswaller, it's making me holler. Cockswaller, it's making me holler. If you ever get a word stuck in your head and you just like, next thing you know, you're making a song out of it, that's it. Cockswaller. I don't know where I heard that recently. Could have just heard it on the radio. But, but the musician in me says, there's a song there somewheres, kid. Not that I'll ever make it into a song, but the word cockswaller, I think that's the name of a town or something. It was said in a serious manner. It wasn't to be a joke, but think of it, cockswaller. Come on, what were they thinking? So here we are reporting from the back end of Conant Cemetery, I believe it's called, and it's a founder's cemetery. It's very old, one of the oldest in this area, probably the oldest. That isn't a family cemetery, which would have been in everybody's backyard, but this is like a communal cemetery, first of its kind. In this area where I live, in our day of cancel culture, where I don't feel comfortable telling you where that is, you know, because I got to protect the scumbag far leftists that want to, make my life difficult. Uh, Suicidally depressed man, you know, who could who has the means to end his life quick and painlessly any day, but you want to keep trying to make my life difficult. And then my viewers, I just got recently from one guy, oh, you're so happy. How can you be suicidally depressed? Comedians often, live reckless lives like I did. Uh, they they often off themselves, right up until recently. I think one died that way. And, I had some open mic history, of comedy. I could have went that way. I didn't want to remember all those lines pretty much, pretty much the same problem with my rock and roll history. I didn't want to remember all those damn lyrics, but I was pretty good at it. But anyway, here we are in these dark times, what I consider the end times. Could be wrong as a Christian, as Christians came before that thought, oh, this is it. This surely is it. We're done for. But no, the world just keeps rolling on. But I mean, these times with this kind of nuclear capacity, there couldn't be a Walking Dead scenario because all the nuclear plants, if they were to go unattended, would all go, hot and just destroy us all anyway. So we'd all be the Walking Dead. There'd be no living for us to eat. But they for the story's sake, they keep that out. For the sake of having the idea, having a movie, you gotta suspend some disbelief. So anyway, this video is another ghost story. It's a short one, and where better to have it than here in our cemetery over a lovely coffee. Oh yeah, that's the stuff you'll want. There's your free commercial right there. We could just clip that part right out and just send me a check. Make it thick, really thick. All right, so it's actually quite pleasant out here. I know I'm very well bundled up, but it's not a whole lot of need for it. In these global warming end times. Very strange how global warming is wiping out the earth around us, but no, it's not the end times. They're all trying to put a chip in you. They're trying to fucking stab you up with all kinds of serums, but no, not the end times. Don't you worry, kid. Just prep. I'm not a prepper. I'll just end it when it gets too stupid. But I do want to read a couple gravestones. We got this one here, but there's nothing much said. But you can see how old the cemetery is. She died in 1806. That's when that grave was planted into the ground. along with its charge. And here you see they've had to try to repair these stones a couple times over. Oh, look at that nice glossy glow. Are you seeing that, or I'm just seeing it from an angle? But anyway, yeah, this one right here, sacred to the memory of Mr. Jonathan Webb. My closest friend is named Webb. And this is such a great inscription. I just got to share it with you before I go into my little ghost story. So this is the Webb family right here. Yeah. So we got. I'm just going to read it to you now. While I face the camera towards what I'm reading, you get an idea of it. But here we go. Jesus, I give my spirit up and trust it in thy hand. My dying flesh. Damn it. Okay. I guess I got to start again, folks. Jesus, I give my spirit up and trust in thy hand. My dying flesh shall rest in hope and rise at thy command. Now I read this so much better last time. Okay. Now I renounce my it must be the lighting angle, folks. I'm sorry about it. Now I renounce my carnal hope, my fond desires recall. I give my worldly interest up and make my God my all. That is just so amazingly written. And look at this one, broken in half. It's got a nice inscription, but we'll never know what that other half says unless it's hanging out in the back here. Just only a part of it is. But let me try to read that in full. I got cement holding the poor thing up. I hope they fix it because it's slanting again, and just enough snow laying on the back of it might be enough to snap this poor thing. So here we go. Here we go. Jesus, I give my spirit up and trust it in thy hand. My dying flesh shall rest in hope and rise at thy command. Now I renounce my carnal hope, my fond desires. Son of a motherless. Recall. My fond desires recall. I give my worldly interests up and make my God my all. Now, just appreciate the significance of that. Look how scratched this was. You see, I don't know if you can see, somebody's just scratched the living hell out of it. See that? Look at the scratches all the way down. Somebody's just scratching away at it. Didn't harm it at all. It's not deep scratches like the carving, but look how beautiful that inscription is. I don't know if you can see that. It's quite lovely. I know you don't give a frig. Eventually, I'll get some subscribers that care about me. But yeah, this is the whole cemetery you're looking at right here. It's wedged between this, private residence and a bicycle shop. And supposedly underneath the bicycle shop is the other half of this cemetery. I don't know how they got the rights to, plant their shop right on top of it, but there you go. I keep meaning to be funny here, but lately I'm not feeling terribly funny. I keep saying, I'm just going to be ridiculous and, let myself go during these videos. People seem to like that. And I'm quite good at it when it comes down to it. It's quite my nature to be silly, but I'm not feeling it. Anyway, I will tell you my ghost story. And we'll go from there. So this one took place in Haverhill. They pronounce it different ways up here. Never pronounced the way it's spelled with New England towns and cities. So, like Worcester. They just call it Worcester, But anyway, The neighbor here is very interested in my the private house next door. She keeps coming out, like looking around. What does she think I'm gonna do at 9 in the morning? Start robbing graves. People. I'm glad you're very protective of the graveyard. You probably don't have anybody in, but I did this video a couple days ago actually, and then the camera didn't film it all; it just automatically stopped because I didn't have enough memory on my camera. I had to unload a bunch of junk. But I'm gonna look at that video if it's any funnier. I think it was. I was in a better mood that day. It was just a tour of this graveyard, and I recited from that same grave. But then the video cut out, and then I just thought I'd redo it today. But I did do a separate ghost video right after that, and I got the ghost video out. It's already up. That ghost was the little girl under the mailbox in New Jersey. This one's in Massachusetts, Haverhill, Massachusetts. That's the city where our boy Rob Zombie was born and raised. Probably its only claim to fame as far as famous people that come from there. And he looks like he comes from there. If you know that city's downtown, its history, you're like, yeah, that's a good place for Rob Zombie to come from. But I visited there a lot when I lived in New Hampshire on the border north of Haverhill, in a town called Nashua, and it wasn't too far a commute, to Haverhill from there. So we'd hit the downtown on the weekends. Lots of historic red brick buildings with bars and whatnot, things to do. I liked it. Spooky, a little ghetto, unfortunately. But you can thank a liberal for that, and or at least a far left liberal, extremist. But so I'm walking the strip. Look at that lovely graveyard. Are you getting a good look? Get a good gander. But you knew I had to say that. But in any case, so I'm walking. I'm by myself at this point. I don't know if I was by myself the whole night, but at this point I was. I was probably going back to my car or something. And I'm gonna say the year was probably around. Can't really know for sure the year. Shit, had to be between 2005, and 2007. I'm gonna say somewhere in there. And so I'm walking down the street. I go into. I still remember what store front that I tucked into the doorway section. It cuts inward, with glass storefront and an overhang to keep me out of the rain because it was raining. And I was just standing there. Didn't have a camera, nothing like that. I didn't even have a flip phone at the time, I don't think. And I'm looking up across the street above bars and restaurants, but very historic buildings, like old ass early 1800s red brick building storefronts. It's very old downtown, well preserved, but I feel sorry for it. I can't imagine it can last forever. But then again, the world's probably not going to last forever either. So in any case, I gaze up. My gaze is directed upward. What would that be? The second floor, third floor? That I can't quite recall. If I was standing there now, I could tell better. Because years later, I did try to relocate the spot that I stood in and the actual window, and I think I did find it, but can't really tell from here, 2 states away, whether it was a floor up or not. It was definitely second or third floor. And it was a big, expansive one of these wide windows, that just looks out over onto the downtown. And let's get this graveyard in the background here, kid. That's what you want. So I'm looking into an empty window, no lights, no occupation inside. I don't think it was a resident. I think it was. I remember being close to that maybe one store over on the second floor at a VIP section at a party because I'm just hip like that. Everybody wants me deep in their parties. They want me deep inside the party. They just get in there, kid. We need you. You make this thing a party. But but I don't think it was that same room. But I was a storefront over from that room one time, and so I don't know what's in this room, but it was a big wide window and it was black inside, just indicating no light was on, and so I'm staring at it for some reason. There's no reason to keep me looking, except I'm looking up. There's nothing there. I probably would have looked away in another second, hadn't I saw something forming, something coming to the window, and just like in the movies, it was a human figure. It was colorless, closer to white or gray, but glowing. Very movie style ghost, what you would expect from minus the sheet over its head, not that kind of ghost. But it was shirtless. It was a man. He was scrawny, and he was older. I could tell. So he's trapped on Earth because spirits that ascend Earth, don't remain the age they were when they died. They tend to look around. They're 30 years old once they've crossed over and washed away all their experiences in that particular lifetime. And they could choose to look however they want to look. They could look any lifetime they ever lived, or possibly even outside that, for all I know, at this time. But what I know, I do know from my time on the other side. So this thing comes to the window, and as it's coming to the window, I could see it pulling out of the darkness right up into the window pane. It must have traveled about 5 feet. I saw it move from the darkness right up to the window pane. And it didn't strut, it didn't stroll, you didn't see, it hobble or waver at all like you would when someone's walking. It just floated to the window directly. Its head didn't bob at all. It just was like on a conveyor belt, just like you see in the movies. But there's a lot of truth in vampires and werewolves. They draw from a lot of the truth and then they just expand upon it. Well, that's one of the truths about ghosts that you see in movies that they later expand upon, where they could throw you across a room like in one of the Conjuring movies, or throw you out the window. I don't know if it could do all that, but they got to spice it up for the movie's sake. And so it just stood there for a while, and I watched it. And I got a sense that it saw me, knew it was being observed. So it was like only a few seconds that it stood at the window, recognized it was being observed. I don't think it looked at me. I can't recall that much. I think it just kind of looked ahead, didn't look around or anything. It just kind of floated to the window, stayed there stiff. And then when it headed back, it did another Hollywood frickin' thing, which is probably what makes people think this is unbelievable. But I'm just sitting there observing it, taking note, not thinking I'm in a movie theater. I'm just looking at what I'm looking at, not expecting to see a ghost at all in the first place. The ghost was the furthest thing from my mind. I was probably just trying to walk off a buzz so I could drive home fairly undrunk. And so then it notices. I think it notices. I feel like I was spiritually aware of it, like it was aware of my spirit being aware of it, and I felt that I was connecting with it as well, psychically, but it didn't want to be connected with. So then it just sinks back into the darkness, and it didn't turn around to go back in the darkness. It just came back the same way, went back the same way it came, but in reverse. Like if you wounded the film backwards, it didn't turn around to go back. It just started going backwards,
back into the darkness. And it was so creepy looking, even with all the street lights and the rain coming down and other people around. Uh, I don't believe it was very busy. Nobody was by me to point it out. But it was right in a big downtown. Just to see this thing, and I just stood there transfixed for a while, just like, what the hell did I just see? And it's like, boy, that's man. You wish you had a camera, but I probably would have been too stunned to even think to take the photo, or I probably wouldn't have had enough time to take the photo. And if it knew I was there, it certainly wasn't going to give me the time to prepare the camera. So there you go. That was Haverhill, Massachusetts, early 2000s, yeah. And and that was a ghost scene that I experienced alone, um, and one of many. I've had so many ghost experiences that I wouldn't consider myself psychic, but perhaps I am. Maybe I'm a little more attuned to them being there. I know they exist. That's the first thing to the acknowledgement that they exist is the first move to possibly seeing more of them in your life, because they're once you're aware that they exist, once you accept to yourself that they exist, then they could sense that in you, and in some cases they'll come to you, because if they're earthbound, a lot of times they want to be recognized by the living. Maybe they want to get a message across or whatever, or they're just lonely. And then you'll see more of them. So my whole life I've known they exist, even while I was agnostic and not of the Lord. Uh, that's I was agnostic then when I saw that ghost in Haverhill. So I knew ghosts exist, so one showed up in front of me. So an atheist could live his whole life not seeing a ghost, and that's why they're so determined that ghosts don't exist and that they're just made up for TV shows, movies, and books. But they may go their whole life not seeing one because they don't believe it in the first place. So they're not attuned to their existence, and therefore they don't ever experience one. Uh, that's partly what that's all about. So there's your next ghost story. Pretty creepy. The glowing, floating ghosts. Man, I could see it in my head as clearly as the day I see it. Just whenever you have a paranormal experience, it's very much like a near-death experience too. It gets lodged in your head like it was yesterday, even though it was like nearly, it was over 15 years ago. That one, and that's why I could, re- relay them to you with such clarity. Because they're so profound. They're so impactful on your memory. Uh, where I lived, what job I had at the time, I don't recall nearly as well. I can't even say for sure. But the moment, it's just singed into my brain. And that's how it works with ghost experiences. So I'll tell you another. If you stick around, might be tomorrow, might be 2 weeks, might be 3 months from now. But I got to spread this shit out because I don't have a whole lot to tell. But check out my other playlist. Check out my karaoke playlist. My my music selection. You'll see a lot of metal, but you'll see some other interesting non-metal music too that'll really turn you on to some extraordinary sounds. So be adventurous, be exploratory. Check out what I got to show you, kid. Stick around. God loves you. God bless you. I love you for having any interest in my tortured life. you know? And actually, it's been a very good life up until about 8 years ago. And it's just kind of been nothing but struggle, an interesting struggle. Some goods come out of it, but hasn't been nearly as fun as any time before 8 years ago. But if I died 8 years ago when I committed suicide, I wouldn't have experienced a lot of stuff. I wouldn't have learned a lot more that I've learned since then. So suffering is definitely part of the package. People don't shun the suffering. It's your spirit learning. We come from a place of beauty, tranquility, peace, and love, all of that which is more than we've ever experienced of it or could on this planet. So we have to suffer. If we're suffering, we're learning. That's what we're here to do on this broken planet. But you could also spread a little love and kindness and beat Satan at his game. All right, God loves you. That's about all, as Styx Hexenhammer would say, from Vermont, not too far from me. All right. I hope he finds God too. I think he is, slowly but surely. The more conservative he gets, the more he realizes, wow, God starts to make more sense. Jesus starts to make more sense to a conservative than a leftist atheist. But I keep going on. So I got to get to work. God bless you. Amen.